Hi, welcome back. Last week, we talked about some things that might be holding you back and some mind shifts that you can take to get out of your own way. This week, we take action. Today, I'm going to talk about 6 things that you can do to help simplify and balance your life. Before we can decide where to focus our energy, first, we must prioritize. There's a number of tools and strategies that can help with this. I've offered a few additional ones in the back of the workbook. But for now, I want to talk about one that's used in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Oftentimes, when we find ourselves spinning our wheels, it's because we keep focusing on what's urgent rather than what's important. Urgent things demand our attention right now, where important things are very important to help us get where we want to go. In 7 Habits, Stephen Covey offers a matrix that looks at importance and urgency. Things that are important and urgent are things that we need to manage, like crises, critical activities, pressing problems, and deadline-driven projects. There are also important things that are not so urgent, things like important goals, long-range planning, preventative maintenance, relationship building, personal growth, and self-care. Those things are the things that we want to focus on. Things that are not so important but are urgent are things like interruptions, some mail and phone calls, some meetings and some reports. Those are things that we'd like to minimize in our life. And things that are neither important or urgent include things like trivia, distractions, some mail and phone calls, time wasters, and busy work. These are things that we should avoid. In order to focus on our priorities, we also need to examine our goals, values, and the big picture of where we want to go in life. That will help us to know what is really important. For me, when I'm focusing on something that's important, it's helpful for me to turn off things like Facebook and email so that I can avoid the urgent distractions. The next 4 actions are easy to remember because they rhyme. They're eliminate, facilitate, automate, and delegate. So often we get caught up in what we think we should be doing that we end up getting distracted from our purpose and values. If it doesn't match up with our long-range plans, or it doesn't nourish our mind, body, and soul, then we should consider eliminating it. For me, I really had to take a long, hard look at this as a single parent because I just couldn't do it all. For a while, I decided that I just wasn't going to date because I wanted to focus on building a business. But then I ended up meeting someone and the business had to take a side step. I ended up resolving that by going part-time at my current job so that I could really focus on both and not compromise my relationship. Facilitate is a fancy word for making something easier. Some ways you can do this include taking out unnecessary steps and simplifying what's left. Chunking activities that are similar together at the same time, like making phone calls all at once or doing all your social media on the same day. Also using effective systems to record and retrieve information and using templates. For me, I use a lot of templates in my report writing because there are some very similar pieces of information that all of them have. This saves me a lot of time from writing things from scratch. Also, my to-do list enables me to copy and paste a list of things that I need to do whenever I start an evaluation. When we automate, we make things more consistent, regular, and predictable. Some tools we might use to do this include things like schedules, routines, and templates. The easier we make a habit, the more likely we are to maintain it. It's often helpful to plan around transition times, like when we get home from work or go to bed. Also, accessibility is an important factor. For example, if you want to use a piece of exercise equipment every day, you probably don't want to have to set it up every time. For me, my bedtime routine is pretty consistent during the school year. So much so that oftentimes when I've had a break, I end up coming back to work with no lunch because I forgot my routine. Oftentimes we do things ourselves because we think it'll save us time or money, or else we just think it's wrong to ask for help. Oftentimes, though, there are people out there who can do those things more efficiently or more effectively than we do. And we're not really saving any money if we spend our time on something we're not very good at when we could be spending our time doing something that we really are. For me, I delegate some of my housework by hiring a house cleaner. That way I don't have to focus my energy on deep cleaning, which I'm not very good at anyway, and instead I can focus my energy on my work. The final action I want to talk about today is creating a sense of urgency, also known as invoking the panic monster. I almost forgot to mention this one, but as I was working on my workbook, I realized that actually was the driving force to push me to start this program. Oftentimes we get distracted by things that are urgent, but not really important. We can follow through on important things more often if we create a sense of urgency around them. Some ways of doing this might include making a public announcement of your intent, setting a due date, making a regular commitment to someone else, making a financial commitment, or if you really want to take a jump, quitting your job. For me, it took reducing my hours to really push me to focus on my business to make it sustainable. Now try to pick one action that you can take and implement it this week. I've provided some additional prioritization tools in the back of your workbook. In our next video, we'll talk about a 4-step process that I use to help get really clear on needs so that we can decide the best direction to meet those needs. Don't forget to check in on our Facebook group and get in on the discussion.